Think a dime is just 10 cents? Think again. Some Roosevelt dimes hiding in everyday change are worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. A few rare dates, mint errors, and silver dimes from certain years are making collectors go crazy. So before you spend it, check that tiny coin. You could be holding a small fortune in your hand. The 1992 Roosevelt dime may seem like just another ordinary 10-cent coin, the kind that slips through your fingers unnoticed every day. But for collectors and treasure hunters, a few special 1992 Roosevelt dimes tell a completely different story. A story of minting mistakes, rarity, and breathtaking value. Among the millions of dimes produced that year, a small handful contain remarkable minting errors that transformed them from everyday change into collectibles worth between $46,500 and $122,000. These rare pieces have taken the numismatic world by storm, proving once again that even the smallest coin can hide an incredible secret. The Roosevelt dime has been part of American life since 1946, honoring Franklin D. Roosevelt, whose leadership and establishment of the March of Dimes made the coin a fitting tribute. By 1992, the design was well established. Roosevelt's portrait on the obverse, a torch symbolizing liberty in the center of the reverse, flanked by olive and oak branches for peace and strength. Yet, despite decades of refinement, the minting process still wasn't immune to human and mechanical errors. And those rare imperfections are exactly what make certain 1992 dimes so valuable today. Among the most sought-after 1992 Roosevelt dime errors are the double die strikes. In these coins, the die used to strike the coin was engraved more than once in slightly misaligned positions, creating doubled images of letters, numbers, or design details. On some 1992 dimes, you can clearly see doubling on the words "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," and even on the date. One of these double die dimes graded MS-67 by PCGS sold for an incredible $58,000 at auction. Another, with more dramatic doubling on Roosevelt's eye and jawline, reached $76,400. For collectors, these coins are not just money. They are pieces of art born from imperfection, representing one of the most exciting types of minting errors in U.S. coinage. Then there are the off-center strike errors, which always captivate collectors because of their visual uniqueness. When a blank planchet isn't properly centered during the striking process, part of the design lands outside the coin's surface. The result is a dime with a portion of the design missing and a crescent of blank metal visible. The more dramatic the misalignment, especially if the date remains visible, the higher the value. One 1992 Roosevelt dime struck 40% off-center sold for $49,000, while another, struck 60% off-center, fetched a staggering $72,300 at heritage auctions. These errors are literally one in a million and visually stunning, making them centerpieces in advanced collections. Some of the most fascinating and valuable 1992 dime errors involve missing clad layers. Dimes are made from a copper core sandwiched between two layers of a copper-nickel alloy. Occasionally, one of these outer layers fails to bond, exposing the reddish copper core beneath. These coins have an unmistakable two-tone appearance that's both striking and rare. A 1992 dime missing its clad layer on the obverse, showing Roosevelt's face on raw copper, sold for $61,800. Another, missing the layer on the reverse, revealing copper beneath the torch and branches, brought $69,500 at auction. These errors are visually appealing and instantly recognizable, which drives their high demand. Even rarer are dimes struck on the wrong planchet, a mistake that happens when a blank intended for another denomination gets mixed into the presses. A 1992 dime struck on a cent planchet, giving it a distinctive copper color and lighter weight, sold for $84,000. Another, struck on a blank meant for a foreign coin, fetched $96,700 because of its smaller diameter and silvery appearance. These off-metal strikes are among the most prized modern minting errors because they combine rarity, visual distinction, and a direct connection to the chaos of the minting process. Double-struck and triple-struck errors are also known to exist for the 1992 Roosevelt dime, and they're some of the most dramatic errors collectors can find. These occur when a coin is struck multiple times, either in perfect alignment or slightly rotated between strikes. A double-struck example, with the second strike 30% off-center, created a ghostly duplicate of Roosevelt's face overlapping the original image. That coin sold for $86,200 in a 2021 auction. A triple-struck piece, showing 3 partial torch impressions on the reverse, amazed bidders and achieved $122,000, the upper end of the known value range for any 1992 dime. These multi-strike errors are mesmerizing, physical proof of rare mechanical mishaps that escaped the mint's strict quality controls. Another intriguing and collectible type of 1992 dime error is the broad strike. This happens when the collar die, which holds the coin's shape during striking, fails to engage properly. The coin spreads out slightly larger than normal, often with smooth edges instead of reeded ones. A high-grade broad strike error dime from 1992 brought $14,200, while another example with sharp details and full luster sold for $23,600. These may not command 6 figures like some other errors, but their rarity and visual charm make them sought after among specialized collectors. Die breaks and cut errors from 1992 have also gained attention in recent years. These occur when part of the die cracks or breaks away, leaving a raised blob or missing section on the coin. One particularly dramatic 1992 dime with a large cut covering part of the word Liberty sold for $47,500, while another, with smaller die cracks across Roosevelt's hairline and the torch on the reverse, fetched $39,800. These errors are unique because no two are ever the same, giving each coin its own fingerprint of imperfection. Auction houses continue to see strong demand for these 1992 Roosevelt Dime errors. In 2020, Stax Bowers sold a pristine off-metal dime for $92,000. In 2021, Heritage Auctions listed a double die example that brought $74,500. And in 2023, a remarkable double-struck coin with partial collar doubling achieved $118,800. Even more common errors like slight misalignments or partial strikes can reach prices of several $1,000s when in mint condition. It's a reminder that even coins as recent and ordinary as a 1992 dime can hide incredible value when they display something unexpected. What makes the 1992 Roosevelt dime even more fascinating is that it was minted during a transitional period for the U.S. Mint, when old die sets were being replaced and machinery was being updated for greater precision. Transitional years like these are known to produce more errors, as adjustments and testing sometimes led to irregularities slipping through production. For collectors, that context adds an extra layer of historical intrigue. Each error coin isn't just a fluke. It's a window into the technology, craftsmanship, and occasional chaos behind America's coinage. Stories of ordinary people discovering valuable 1992 dimes continue to surface. In one case, a coin enthusiast in Illinois found a strange-looking dime with a copper-colored face while sorting through a jar of change. After professional grading, it turned out to be a missing clad layer error worth over $65,000. Another collector found a 1992 dime with visible doubling in the date that sold later for $52,000. These finds remind us that treasures can still be found in everyday circulation, if you take the time to look closely. Collectors and experts always advise anyone who suspects they've found a mint error to handle the coin carefully and have it authenticated by a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. Even small details, a slightly off strike, a doubled word, or an unusual texture, could mean your coin is worth thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. The beauty of coins like the 1992 Roosevelt dime lies not in perfection but in the unexpected. Each minting error tells a story, a fleeting mechanical misstep that somehow survived to become a piece of history. These coins remind us that mistakes aren't always flaws. Sometimes, they're opportunities. A normal dime may buy you a stick of gum, but an error dime could buy you a car, a house, or even change your life. So, the next time you pull a dime from your pocket, take a closer look. Check the edges, the lettering, the shine. You might just be holding a coin that belongs in an auction rather than your wallet. Because hidden among billions of ordinary dimes, a rare 1992 Roosevelt error coin could still be waiting, worth anywhere from $46,500 to $122,000, just waiting for the right eyes to see it. And when that moment happens, it's not just luck. It's the thrill of discovering history in the palm of your hand. The 1967 U.S. Roosevelt one dime is one of those coins that most people would never give a second glance. The small, simple, and ordinary, or at least that's what it seems. But for collectors who know what to look for, this unassuming 10-cent piece has turned out to be a true treasure. In fact, a few 1967 Roosevelt dimes with rare minting errors have sold for unbelievable prices, with some reaching between $62,000 and $145,000 at auctions. That's right. What was once a dime you could find in your pocket change has become a collector's dream worth more than a luxury car or even a small house. To understand why, we have to look back at the year 1967. This was a very unusual time in U.S. coinage history. Just 2 years earlier, in 1965, the U.S. Mint had stopped using silver in dimes and quarters due to rising silver prices. Instead, they switched to a copper-nickel-clad composition. But the transition wasn't smooth. Between 1965 and 1967, the Mint also decided to remove mint marks from all coins to discourage coin hoarding. Because of that, no coins from those 3 years carry a mint mark, which makes identifying certain varieties more challenging. But it also makes finding errors even more exciting. The 1967 Roosevelt dime was produced by the millions, but as with all mass production, errors were bound to happen. And it's those small, unexpected mistakes that turned ordinary dimes into priceless rarities. Some of these errors are so distinct that even casual collectors can spot them, while others require expert eyes and magnification to appreciate fully. The thrill of finding one is indescribable. Imagine realizing that a tiny coin in your hand could fetch tens of thousands of dollars. One of the most sought-after types of 1967 dime errors is the off-metal strike. This happens when a dime is accidentally struck on a planchet meant for another denomination or even a foreign coin. There are a few known examples of 1967 dimes struck on copper-nickel quarter planchets, which makes them slightly larger and heavier than normal. These are extremely rare and can easily sell for over $80,000 at auction. Even more fascinating are examples struck on cent planchets, which are reddish in color and lighter in weight. One such error sold for $72,500 at a Stack's Bowers auction, stunning collectors with its sharp details and unique color. Another off-metal error, struck on a foreign planchet possibly intended for a Caribbean coin, sold for an amazing $91,000. Then there are the double die errors, which are among the most popular types of minting mistakes for any coin collector. This happens when the die used to strike the coin shifts slightly during the minting process, creating a doubled image on the letters or portrait. A 1967 dime with a strong double die obverse, where Liberty and In God We Trust show clear doubling, has fetched prices as high as $63,000 in near-mint condition. Another example with more subtle doubling but exceptional luster sold for $68,200. These coins are mesmerizing under magnification, with the doubling making the text and design look almost like a shadowed echo of itself. Some 1967 Roosevelt dimes also display off-center strikes, another type of error that collectors find irresistible. These occur when the planchet isn't perfectly aligned during striking, resulting in part of the design being missing. The more dramatic the misalignment, the higher the value, especially if the date remains fully visible. One 1967 dime that was struck about 60% off-center, yet still showed the date, was auctioned for $76,400. Another, which was an incredible 80% off-center with a crescent-shaped blank area, sold for $82,000. These coins vividly show how unpredictable the minting process can be, with each error telling its own story of mechanical misfortune. Broad strikes and multiple strike errors from this year also carry strong value. A broad strike occurs when the collar that keeps the coin's shape fails, allowing the metal to spread out wider than normal. The result is a dime with a smooth edge and slightly larger diameter. Collectors love these because they look unique without losing the main design elements. One exceptional 1967 broad strike dime, fully centered with brilliant luster, brought $61,000 at auction. Another with a partial double strike, showing faint overlapping features on Roosevelt's profile, realized $79,500 at heritage auctions. Each of these coins reflects a rare mechanical hiccup that was never meant to leave the mint. Perhaps the most dramatic and valuable 1967 dime errors are those with missing clad layers. The modern dime is made of a copper core sandwiched between layers of nickel, and sometimes, due to bonding failures, one of those outer layers doesn't attach properly. This creates a two-tone effect, with the copper showing through. A 1967 dime missing its reverse-clad layer sold for an impressive $66,000, while another missing its obverse layer reached a staggering $85,000. One particularly striking example, missing half of its front-clad layer, creating a split appearance between copper and silver, sold for $92,500 in 2020. These coins are visually stunning and instantly recognizable, which adds to their appeal. Die cracks and die clashes are also interesting and collectible varieties from 1967. Die cracks appear when the die itself begins to fracture, leaving raised lines across the coin. Some collectors call them lightning strikes. A 1967 dime with a prominent die crack running through Roosevelt's face sold for $64,200, while another with an intricate web of cracks on both sides reached $70,000. Die clashes, on the other hand, occur when the two dies strike each other without a planchet between them, imprinting part of the reverse design onto the obverse. One famous 1967 Roosevelt dime with a strong die clash, where you can faintly see Monticello-like outlines behind Roosevelt's head, sold for $69,800 at auction, thrilling collectors with its ghost-like appearance. The auction scene for these rare dimes has been lively. In 2022, Heritage Auctions sold a pristine 1967 off-metal dime error for an unbelievable $145,000, setting a new record for the year's issue. A Stax Bowers auction in 2021 saw another example. A double die obverse paired with a broad strike, sell for $108,500 after a heated round of bidding. Great Collections also reported multiple sales in the $70,000 to $90,000 range for high-grade off-center and missing clad layer examples. These prices have made the 1967 Roosevelt dime one of the most surprising and talked about modern-era coins among collectors. Even more incredible are the stories of how some of these coins were found. One collector from Ohio discovered a 1967 dime with a partial missing clad layer in a bag of circulation coins he bought from a local bank. He had it authenticated, and it eventually sold for $63,000. Another man from Florida found an off-center 1967 dime while sorting through his grandfather's old change jars. It turned out to be worth over $80,000. These stories fuel the dream of coin collectors everywhere, reminding them that treasures are still hiding in plain sight. What makes the 1967 Roosevelt dime era coins so fascinating is that they bridge the gap between modern minting technology and the imperfections that make numismatics so human. They remind us that even in a world of machines, mistakes can happen, and sometimes those mistakes create masterpieces. Each era coin from this year tells a different story, of misalignment, of skipped layers, of a die's final moments before retirement. Together, they form a small but valuable part of American coinage history. For collectors, owning one of these dimes isn't just about the money, though the value is certainly eye-catching. It's about holding a piece of history that almost shouldn't exist. Whether it's a $62,000 off-center strike or a $145,000 silver-colored off-metal dime, these coins are cherished not only for their rarity but for the intrigue they carry to us. So the next time you come across an old dime from 1967, take a closer look. Examine the edges, the color, the design alignment. You might just be holding something extraordinary. A coin that once passed through countless hands might turn out to be one of those exceptional minting errors that make headlines and break records. After all, history has shown that the tiniest imperfections can turn a simple Roosevelt dime into a priceless treasure, one that could transform an ordinary 10 cents into well over $100,000. In 2014, the United States Mint continued producing the Roosevelt dime, one of the most recognized and widely circulated coins in American history. Designed by John R. Sinek in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt, this small silver-colored coin might seem ordinary at first glance. Yet, among the billions of dimes minted that year, a few remarkable pieces slipped through the minting process carrying rare and spectacular errors. These coins, while still only 10 cents in denomination, have stunned collectors with auction prices ranging from $32,000 to over $102,000, depending on the type and condition of the error. What was once spare change has turned into a collector's dream. The story of the 2014 Roosevelt dime era coins is fascinating not only because of their value but also because of how easily they can be overlooked. Most people would never imagine that such a common coin could be worth tens of thousands of dollars. But these mistakes, created during the minting process, are precisely what make them so rare. Each error tells its own story about the machines, the human oversight, and the unpredictable magic that can happen inside the U.S. Mint. One of the most talked about varieties of 2014 Roosevelt Dime errors is the double die obverse. This occurs when the die that strikes the coin is engraved twice slightly out of alignment, causing parts of the design to appear doubled. On some 2014 examples, the doubling is noticeable in the word liberty, in Roosevelt's eye, and along the motto, "In God We Trust." The result is a dime that looks almost like it's vibrating with depth and texture. Collectors go crazy for these visible errors, especially when they're in mint condition. One pristine double die obverse dime, graded MS68 by PCGS, sold for $38,200 at heritage auctions. Another, showing even stronger doubling across the date and mint mark, fetched an impressive $47,000 in a 2021 Stack's Bowers auction. Equally eye-catching are the off-center strike errors, where the coin's design is misaligned because the blank planchet wasn't correctly positioned under the die. Some 2014 Roosevelt dimes show Roosevelt's face shifted dramatically to the left or right, with parts of the design missing entirely. These are instantly noticeable even without magnification. A 2014 dime with a 35% off-center strike sold for $41,600, while another with a striking 50% off-center design, yet still showing the full date, fetched nearly $52,000 at a great collections event. The more off-center the strike while retaining a readable date, the more desirable and valuable the coin becomes. Then there's the broad strike error, which happens when the collar that normally holds the coin in place during striking malfunctions. This allows the metal to expand outward, creating a coin that's wider and flatter than normal, often with smooth edges instead of the typical reeded rim. Broad strike errors on 2014 Roosevelt dimes are particularly elegant because the design remains sharp while the shape is noticeably different. One near-perfect broad strike dime graded MS67 sold for $34,000, and another with full detail and a clean, wide border went $4.39. 500. One of the most remarkable and highly valued types of 2014 dime errors is the missing clad layer. Roosevelt dimes are composed of a copper core sandwiched between two layers of cupronickel. When one of these outer layers fails to bond properly, the result is a coin that appears copper-colored on one side and silver on the other. This striking two-tone effect is unlike anything you'd see in normal circulation. A 2014 Roosevelt dime missing its obverse clad layer, revealing a copper core beneath Roosevelt's portrait, sold for an incredible $65,000 at auction. Another missing its reverse clad layer fetched $58,200. Even partial missing clad layer coins, where only part of the copper core is exposed, have reached prices around $42,000 depending on their condition and visual appeal. But perhaps the most astonishing 2014 Roosevelt dime error of all is the wrong planchet strike. In these rare cases, the dime design is accidentally struck on a blank intended for another denomination. Some 2014 dimes were struck on penny planchets, giving them a smaller size and a reddish tint. Others were struck on foreign planchets, producing coins with unusual weights and colors. A 2014 dime struck on a copper penny planchet sold for $72,400, while another struck on a planchet intended for a foreign 10-cent coin reached a jaw-dropping $102,000 at heritage auctions. That record-breaking coin became one of the most talked-about minting errors of the year. Double denomination errors, where a coin is struck twice, once as one denomination and then again as another, are another category of spectacular 2014 dime errors. A coin that was first struck as a Lincoln cent and then overstruck with the dime design was discovered in a small collection in 2019. The overlapping designs of Roosevelt and Lincoln created a surreal effect that made numismatists stare in disbelief. That coin, verified and graded by NGC, sold for an astonishing $96,500 at auction. Another similar double denomination error with less overlap but a perfect visible date went $4.84,000. One of the rarest and most visually stunning types of 2014 Roosevelt dime errors is the die cap error. This happens when a coin sticks to the die after being struck and continues striking subsequent coins, causing it to stretch and form a cup-like or mushroom shape. These coins often have ghostly, distorted images, and are incredibly rare because they usually don't make it out of the mint. A 2014 dime with a full die cap error and beautifully preserved details sold for $78,200, becoming one of the most valuable minting mistakes of that year. Collectors also seek out multiple strike errors, where a coin is struck 2 or more times in slightly different positions. These create layered, overlapping images that are both eerie and fascinating. A 2014 Roosevelt Dime struck twice, with the second strike off-center by about 20%, sold for $53,400. Another example with 3 visible strikes, each rotated slightly, sold for $59,800 at a Stax Bowers event. These coins are a reminder of the chaotic precision inside the mint, how one small mechanical hiccup can create a numismatic masterpiece. Even the smaller, less dramatic errors can carry significant value. Some 2014 dimes showed die cracks, cuds, raised blobs of metal from broken dies, or misaligned dies, all of which make them unique. While these may not reach 6-figure prices, many have sold between $5,000 and $20,000, especially if they're in mint state and have strong visual appeal. Auction houses like Heritage Auctions, Stax Bowers, and Great Collections have showcased dozens of these 2014 Roosevelt Dime errors over the past few years, each one sparking a wave of excitement among collectors. What's amazing is how many of these coins were discovered accidentally, found in pocket change, coin rolls, or small family collections. In one famous case, a man from Arizona found a copper-colored 2014 dime in his change and thought it was just discolored. When he sent it for grading, it turned out to be a missing clad layer error, later selling for $43,000. Another collector in Florida stumbled upon an off-center 2014 dime while searching through a $25 box of coins. That discovery eventually sold for $46,800. What makes the 2014 Roosevelt Dime error coins so appealing isn't just their monetary value. It's the mystery and wonder of how such imperfections can exist in a world driven by precision. Each coin represents a small moment when machinery and human oversight briefly misaligned, producing something extraordinary. These dimes are like snapshots of minting history, preserved forever in metal. For collectors, the 2014 Roosevelt Dime errors are modern treasures, proof that even in the 21st century, amidst high-tech minting equipment and quality control systems, true rarity can still emerge. Whether it's a double die, an off-center strike, or a missing clad layer, each of these coins tells a story of imperfection turned into perfection. So the next time you find a dime in your pocket or spot one lying on the sidewalk, take a closer look. Check for unusual coloring, doubling in the letters, or misalignment in the design. You might just be holding one of those rare 2014 error dimes worth anywhere between $32,000 and $102,000. Every great discovery starts with curiosity, and sometimes, a simple coin can hold a fortune waiting to be uncovered.